Shalom, shalom. What's good out there? Welcome back. This is a special edition of Warriors of Wisdom with brothers Mikha'El ben Israel and Moreh Yeshiah. They're about to get real deep talking about Deuteronomy 28. And I already know y'all gonna be like, man, we already know about Deuteronomy 28, blah, blah, blah. No. They coming with some information that y'all may have looked over and y'all ain't never seen before. Y'all need to look at it. And that's the mistake we always make with the Bible. We think we done looked at the same thing over 100 times, and before you know it, 20 years later, you looking at that same verse you done looked at for the past 50 years, and you like, wait a minute, I never noticed that before. They gonna bring some of that for y'all. So we gonna kick it off with Mikha'El ben Israel. What you got for us, bro?
Hey, shalom, brother Alvin. Shalom to my brother Moreh Yeshiah. And
Shalom.
grace and peace and shalom to all the listener audience. I call my brother Yeshiah as I normally do, frequently. Him and my brother Alvin, and we have been talking lately about, it's a lot of doctrines floating around out here, teachings that I've been hearing for years. That actually what they do is they try to undermine the scriptures. They undermine the prophecies that the Most High put, especially Deuteronomy 28:68. And I believe that reason is due to the fact of the prophecy in Psalms 83, verse 3 through 5, where it say the nations have taken crafty counsel against his people. His hidden ones, so that the name of Israel would be cut off from remembrance. Well, we know that that is us. And the sad thing about it is, the nations that he named, you see him, he named the Edomites, he named the Ishmaelites or Arabs, he named all the other nations. And we know that they had a part in it, but the funny thing is, some of our people has gravitated towards the conspiracy themselves, and they don't know that they're doing it, I believe. I believe it's subconsciously. I believe some of them just doing it because maybe they sick of what they deem as pompous Hebrew Israelites or cocky Hebrew Israelites. So they kind of downplay certain words in the prophecy. It's one cat in particular that I've been peeping for some years, and he called himself Rabbi Asher Mazey. And basically, the dude is more than likely an Edomite. You see him on YouTube. He basically does his hardest to try and debunk the quote-unquote black Hebrew Israelites. And so I just saw one of his videos he did where it was actually called Deuteronomy 28:68. So he's serious about it. But the funny thing about it is, me and my brothers was talking, if you see a lot of his videos, he's actually digressed. Because in his new video, he admits in the video that a large portion of the Israelites were black. So in a minute, he's just going to have to fold the tent and say, you know what, all of them was a Negro people, and we converted. That's really what he's going to have to say. They converted and not the other way around. So I want to bring up something because this doctrine seems to be, I keep hearing this. So we're going to really sit here and analyze Deuteronomy chapter 28:68 because there's a doctrine going around saying that historically, that during 70 AD when General Titus sacked Jerusalem, that he actually took a lot of the slaves that he captured in Jerusalem, the real Israelites, which would be us, and they say that he actually took them by ships. Now, nowhere can I really, I'm pretty sure it's out there because I heard a brother do a breakdown on it and he briefly went through it, but I couldn't get the reference. But I know where this come from, and it's part of the crafty counsel, and I'll show you why. Not off my feelings, but off the scriptures. Let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 68. Let's pay attention to something. Now, I'm going to do this with your regular old English KJV. Because something Rabbi Asher said was that he wouldn't say that the KJV is inaccurate. He didn't want to go that far or play with God like that. So what he said was it's in that old English archaic language, as he put it, archaic. So I want to read Deuteronomy 28 and 68, and let's pay attention to this real close. It reads, "And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, by the way whereof I spake unto thee. Thou shalt see it no more again, and there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you." Now, if you notice, it said, "He shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships." Now, this the thing. We all know that Egypt is symbolic with bondage and captivity, because you cannot find, not even the rabbi guy cannot find a big massive kidnapping of the Israelites going back into Egypt as a nation. You're not going to see it. You'll see times where small groups and pockets went back, and the Lord actually reprimanded us for that. But never again was the whole nation flooded into Egypt. That actually will go against what the Most High said in Scripture. So we know that this Egypt cannot be that exact same Egypt. So I think that's just kind of common sense. But it's the with ships part that we want to focus on. Now, one reason that the Most High tell us is say, "In the way whereof I spake unto thee." Now, if we going into these ships, and it's letting us know the way the way that the Israelites are going to go into this bondage or this Egypt is by way of ships, then that's letting you know that that's one of the only ways that this certain dispersion will be able to take place. Meaning that this population of Israelites that will be sent into captivity, the only way they can be sent where they're going to be is by ships. So what does that let you know? That means that there has to be a large body of water to cross, and that means that these ships have to be boats, not some well, it didn't say, well, yeah, we'll send a few ships and the rest of you can walk. Because if we did the thing from Israel to Egypt, then it wouldn't make sense. I mean, like, would you had sent all the Israelites by those ships, or would some of them walk and some of them be in ships? Why would some of them be in ships? Was they royalty or something like that? No, they didn't care about you beating your feet for 90,000 miles. Come on, that's silly. So I want to pay attention to that. Since he brought that up, and then the brother turned around and said that the English language is archaic. I'll get to that later. Matter of fact, I'll just tell you, go to Malachi chapter 1 and verse 11, when he said that the stammer lip and another tongue he shall speak to this people. So whenever somebody say something like that about the KJV, you should automatically just stop talking to them, because that means they don't believe the Most High. Okay, so since it says that the Israelites would be sent by ships into Egypt in Deuteronomy chapter 28 verse 68, then that would explain how he's going to gather us. Let's go to Isaiah chapter 11. This is one of my favorite, and a lot of people like to go here for good reasons. But now if you put it with Deuteronomy 28 68, it would make sense. Now let's look at Isaiah chapter 11 verse 11. This is the Lord talking about recovering the Israelites. So let's see what he say he's going to recover us from. "And it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall set his hand again the second time to recover the remnant of his people that goes with into Egypt again by ships." You see what I'm saying? The second time. Now watch this. Remember, he recovered us once up out of Egypt. So let's watch this. "Which shall be left from Assyria and from Egypt, and from Pathros and from Cush." Now we see Egypt again. So does this mean identically the same Egypt? Or did that mean in Deuteronomy 28 68 that Egypt was a condition? Because we know right here he's naming countries individually. So this would actually be Cush. I mean, Mizraim. "Egypt and from Pathros and from Cush," that's Ethiopia, "from Elam and from Shinar and from Hamath and from the islands of the sea." Now let's stop right there. At the bottom, it says he will gather us from the islands of the sea. So I ask, how did we get to those islands of the sea? that he's going to gather us from in the future. This is future tense now. He's going to gather us from the islands of the sea. Now, he named all these countries up through Africa, and at the bottom, you got the islands of the sea. So that means it's some people that wind up over here in these isolated islands across these big land masses of water. How did they get there? Let's go back to where we came from. Now, when you put it in context, it'll understand. And people, my computer is rejecting me, so if it kicks me out, just wait on me. It usually only takes me like 2 minutes to get back in. So in 68, it says, and the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships. There you go. So he sent us by way in ships, and that's why he'll have to recover us in Isaiah 11:11 from the islands of the sea, because we were sent by ships into that bondage. So next, just to confirm what I'm saying, I would like to go to Isaiah chapter 60, and I'm going to start at verse 9. They're kicking me out, y'all, so this will give y'all some time to go to the verse, Alvin and Moreh. I'll be right back. Isaiah 60 and verse 9. It should take me but a minute and a half to get back in.
Isaiah 60, verse 9. Hey, you got that verse, Moreh?
Yeah.
Go ahead, read.
Book of Isaiah, chapter 60. We want to go to verse 9. All right, I'll read it. All right, and it reads as follows. It says in verse 9, surely the owl shall wait for me, and the ships of Tarshish first, to bring thy sons from far, their silver and their gold with them, unto the name of the Lord thy God, to the name of the Lord thy God, and to the Holy One of Israel, because he hath glorified thee. Did y'all hear that?
I just got back. I just got back. What I missed?
All right, but did you hear me when I was reading verse 9?
Yeah.
Oh, you was reading. Oh, you was reading it for me. Okay, go. Yeah, go ahead. Why don't you read that up? Read verse 9.
Surely the owl shall wait for me in the ships of Tarshish first, to bring thy sons from far, their silver and their gold with them, unto the name of the Lord thy God, and to the Holy One of Israel, because he hath glorified thee.
Okay, now stop right there. Now, we know that this is one of the promises in the future. This goes along with the future prophecy of him gathering his people. And you see the first thing it says, surely the isles shall wait for thee, and the ships of Tarshish first. Now, we know Tarshish is actually aligned with modern day Spain. The funny thing about that is almost half of the slave trade, of the transatlantic slave trade, was controlled by the Spaniards and the Portuguese. So modern day, that would be the same thing. So you can't avoid this. How do he keep recovering these slaves, these Israelites, Jews, from these places across these large bodies of water? And why do they keep needing ships? They need these ships or these boats, because it was ships that sent us out there, or boats, which you call slave ships. So we're going to let the scriptures just debunk all of this other stuff that's people saying. So next, I want to go to Isaiah chapter 33. We can go to Isaiah chapter 33. And when you get there, Moreh, Yeshiah, since you don't mind, you do such an excellent job of reading, I guess I'll let you do it. I know you got about 15 different Bibles, Hebrew and all that. Just stick with the KJV with me on this one. You can get into that other demo after I finish, because I'll be through in a minute. Isaiah chapter 33, and I'll let you, why don't you please read verse 1 to 2 for me first.
Woe to thee that spoileth, and thou wast not spoiled, and dealest treacherously, and they dealt not treacherously with thee. When thou shalt cease to spoil, thou shalt be spoiled, and when thou shalt make an end to deal treacherously, they shall deal treacherously with thee. O Yah, be gracious unto us, we have waited for thee. Be thou their arm every morning, our salvation, also in the time of trouble.
Okay, stop right there. So we see the Most High is, this is a prayer basically, but the Most High is letting us know, basically, man, everybody that dealt treacherous with us and all that type of stuff, he gonna save us. So don't worry about it. So let's see how he gonna do this. Would you please go to verse 19, Moreh Yeshiah, and read 19 to verse 22, please?
We are in Isaiah 33:19. Thou shalt not see a fierce people, a people of a deeper speech than thou canst perceive, of a stammering tongue that thou canst not understand. Look unto Zion, the city of our solemnities. Thine eyes shall see Jerusalem, a quiet habitation, a tabernacle that shall not be taken down. Not one of the stakes thereof shall ever be removed, neither shall any of the cords thereof be broken. But there the glorious Most High will be unto us a place of broad rivers and streams, wherein shall go no galley with oars, neither shall gallant ship pass thereby. For the Most High is our judge, the Most High is our Lord giver, the Most High is our King, he will save us.
Okay, so we see, so you can stop right there. So we see in this promise again, he telling us that he got us in this position right here. This was when we would be in a safe place. So, but let's focus on, pay attention to what the brother read in verse 19. It said, thou shalt not see a fierce people and a people of a deeper speech than thou canst perceive, of a stammering tongue that canst not understand. Now, why did he say that? The reason he's saying that, because at this time now, this is when after he's recovered us, we will be in a safe place. And the reason he brought up these fierce people with this deep speech and this tongue is because the same people that he sent us to on those ships in Deuteronomy 28:68 had a deep speech, basically they had a language that we did not understand, and they was of fierce consonants. Now, I ask you, in 70 AD, when we were scattered amongst the Romans were not strangers to us at that time. We knew who the Romans was because in the New Testament, we was dealing with the Romans. So it was Israelites who would have known their speech. But you know whose speech they wouldn't know? The people that descend from those same people hundreds of years later, around the 15, 16, 1700s, now they were speaking a new language called English. English and Spanish. These languages did not exist in their current form back then. Therefore, the Israelites that had been sojourning throughout Africa that wound up in the west coast of Africa before we got on those ships would have seen these people and would have had absolutely no idea what language they were speaking. Now it makes sense. So let's just verify this about these people and see if these are the people that basically picked us up during the slave trade. Let's go to Deuteronomy, back to Deuteronomy chapter 28. Because see, people can't skip over these little words as if they're just little words that's just filling up space on the pages. No, the Most High had these words put in here for a reason, for us to read them and pay close attention to them. So can't nobody dupe us no more. So Deuteronomy chapter 28. And brother, would you please read verse 49 and 50?
Deuteronomy 28 verse 49 says, the Lord shall bring a nation against thee from far, from the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle flieth, a nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand, a nation of fierce countenance, which shall not regard the person of the old, nor show favor to the young.
Now hold on, y'all. Didn't we just read that in Isaiah chapter 33, y'all? Now y'all see what people he gonna be recovering us from. He said we won't have to worry about them no more. These people with this stammering lip, this confusing tongue, this fierce countenance. Here they go again. These are the people who we basically got sold to in a transatlantic slave trade. And before somebody try to say, but look, it says nation. Yes, it says nation, but in the same Deuteronomy 28, it also tells you the nations that he will have us scattered to. So the term nation is just letting you know that this is another group of people besides us. You know, even Rome was made up of multiple nations, but it was still called a nation. So now we see the book is identifying itself. We don't need somebody to philosophize. So to the Rabbi Asher Mazey, another act for you. Face it, we are the Israelites, and if you do serve the God of Israel, I welcome you, but you got to get that hate off your heart, man. Now let me say this, and then I'll be able to turn it over to the teacher, Moreh Yeshiah. I like to stay in Deuteronomy 28 just to further pay attention to something, because this right here is something a lot of Israelites or haters don't pay attention to. This is going to do some serious damage to the Roman myth of the ships having to do with 70 AD. This is about to kill it right here. They're kicking me out again, so I'll be back in a minute. But I want y'all to stay in Deuteronomy 28 and go to verse 60. Go to verse 60 to 61 for me, Yeshiah. You can start reading, and I'll just come back in and reiterate. 60 and 60.
Deuteronomy 28, verse 60. Moreover, he will bring upon thee all the diseases of Egypt, which thou wast afraid of, and they shall cleave unto thee. Also, every sickness and every plague, which is not written in the book of this law, them will the Lord bring upon thee until thou be destroyed. Can I be heard?
Yeah. Hold on. Yeah, you there? Mikha'El, you back?
I'm back.
Okay, cool.
Deuteronomy 28, 60. Moreover, he will bring upon thee all the diseases of Egypt, which thou wast afraid of, and they shall cleave unto thee. Also, every sickness and every plague, which is not written in the book of this law, them will the Lord bring upon thee until thou be destroyed.
Bam! Stop right there. Now, to the listening audience, if you are really devout students of the Holy Bible and history, I hope y'all just caught that. Because look, in verse 60, he said, moreover, he will bring upon thee all the diseases of Egypt, which thou was afraid of, and they shall cleave unto thee. Now, he said the diseases of Egypt that we was afraid of. Why would he say that we was afraid of? You know why? Because we were familiar with these diseases. The Egyptians caught them. They were all in the land of Egypt. Go look at some of the curses and stuff, some of the plagues the Lord put on the Egyptians, from the boils to the leprosy, all of these type of diseases and stuff and elements. We were familiar with them. So he said we was afraid of them. But peep what 61 says. Now here goes. Now this one right here, I want to see somebody tell me what this means. Also, every sickness and every plague which is not written in the book of this law, them will the Lord bring unto thee until thou be destroyed. Now, what did he mean by was not written in the book of the law? Meaning it was not recorded in the Torah. Why? Because the diseases did not exist at that time. Meaning AIDS, HIV, herpes, all this stuff that the quote-unquote African American is #1 in the country, and STDs, they did not exist in biblical times. That's why he said that was not written in the law. Meaning there's some new diseases that these people done whipped up, and guess what? You gonna have them more than every other nation. So again, that debunks the 70 AD Rome and all of that too. So this is a whole new captivity, man. And then you cannot say on one hand that, yeah, we know some of the Israelites came over here to America. Then it has to be written. And if it's written that we came over here, then it has to describe how we got here. God is not maybe or iffy with anything else, so why would he be with that? I have one more thing I would like to bring up, and I'll let you turn over, brother. I just wanted to address Rabbi Asher Mazey. I hope I'm saying your name right, but if not, that's okay. You will be all right. At first, you said the Jews literally went back into Egypt. And then you turned around at the 4:12 minute mark and said the Romans used ships to send the Israelites all over the world. Now, hold on. If we was going literally back into Egypt, then why would you turn around and say that they used ships to send the Israelites all over the world? So you mean to tell me Egypt was symbolic with bondage then, huh? But you said in your video it did not mean bondage. That's funny. Then he said a large population of the Israelites are black. He won't deny that. And he said they did go into Africa. So I'd like to know which one is it, man. Can y'all just admit that y'all playing a con game and we've caught onto y'all because the Holy Spirit, the Ruach HaKodesh, is with his people and he will no longer let us be duped? Can't nobody break this book down like us. It is not being cocky. It is because the same book told us that the Jews or the Israelites will possess the oracles of the Most High God. And with that, I'd like to say thank y'all for y'all time. I will be on here, and if y'all need me, I'll come in and out periodically. I would like to turn it back over to the host, Alvin, the director, and he can get it ready for our Teach It Moreh Yeshiah. Shalom. Alvin, you there?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
My mute button be messing up. Yeah, hey man. Hey, I'm just gonna call that an all-out body bag of the of the guy. What's his name?
Rabbi Asher.
You know what? He kind of resemble Rabbiner Shalomathon Sacco.
Dr. Sacco Shalomathon. Oh, he'll have some more videos out, y'all. Stay on the lookout for Dr. Rabbi Sacco Shalomathon. And I like to put a plugger in there before the teacher starts. My show, The Walls of Jericho, will be back active next month. I've been on a month vacation. I know a lot of people upset with me, but I had to get a lot of things together and right first. So I will be back, and I got some new surprises, and I'll have new guests on the show. So go ahead and let the brother Moreh get down because he got some heat to bring.
All right, Moreh, go ahead. What you got for us, bro?
Can I be heard?
Loud and clear.
All right. First and foremost, give honor and praise to the Creator and the Maker of heaven and earth. Now, we're going to go into Deuteronomy 28. And I want to sit there and, on a human level, give a couple of shout-outs, you might say, to the brother Alvin, not taking nothing away from what we presenting. The satire you did about the whole thing, oh, look at the sandals. Nobody wore sandals in the ancient past. I saw it. I cracked.
Yeah, that was
my
classic.
brother-in-law not in the way of being anything about it. This is my younger sister's husband. What I've noticed is that right there kind of set the tone. Some people got upset because what you did, brother, with the Spirit of the Father, was show how silly certain things actually can be. So let's continue in that same kind of vein. In certain things, let's go to Deuteronomy. All right, we're going to go to Deuteronomy 20, verse 68, right? Here's what we read. Now, we're going to go here. I'm going to deal with the King James. And then, according to God, Rabbi Asher, he said, I don't remember the one. He said, a true Hebrew Israelite would go into the Hebrew. So we're going to see what happens when the true Hebrew Israelite, blessed be the Father, gets into the Hebrew. Because according to him, that's our figuring of qualification. Okay, let's move on. It's here at the end. And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, by the way whereof I spoke unto thee. Thou shalt see it no more again. And there you shall be sold unto the enemy, of bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you. Now, not only does Rabbi Asher go into the Hebrew, as if to say that that's a qualification for true Hebrew Israelite. He doesn't, in that video that I posted on the wall, he doesn't get into the Hebrew, no disrespect to him as a person. And then there's another person who goes into the Hebrew in another video about this, but he doesn't sit there and understand what he's talking about. Okay, let's go over to a key word that Israelites teach and then get into the Hebrew. First off, when you go, well, now the Hebrew we're talking is, okay, that was the vowels, okay, which a lot of people use. Let's go in here and sit there and explain it from that point, right? Here's what we read, if we're following, right? Okay, I see that my hand was inside the way there. All right, let's go on. It says, where's sheep cop? Let's stop right there. Where means and. And in English means that it's a conjecture. It's joining one thought to another. So therefore, you can't start in Deuteronomy 28:68 and just end right there, as if that's the whole point. Incorrect. You
you have to start from before. You cannot read a book where it starts off by saying and get the full meaning of what almost been presented. Somebody's misleading you by just having the word and in the beginning of the sentence. So that means you have to go and see what it's talking about. Let's see what the and is joining the two things too, because that's even in English. And means and, right? Okay, let's go
Hey,
on.
Moreh, your voice going in and out.
Yeah, I couldn't hear him. Put the phone up. Are you on your phone, bro?
I'm gonna fix that. No problem. Give me a second.
Now you loud and clear now.
Yeah.
No problem. Okay, now, can I be heard?
Yeah, there we go.
All right. So now, going into this here with the Hebrew, right? It says, where has sheep come? Now, where means in. Now, we go in verse 67, right? It says, in the morning thou shalt say, what God and what even. And at even thou shalt say, what God and what morning. For the fear of thine heart which thou shalt fear, and for the sight of thine eyes which thou shalt see. Now, let's go into verse 60, right? Moreover, he will bring upon thee all the diseases of Egypt, which thou wast afraid of, and they shall what? Cleave unto thee. So what were the diseases of Egypt that the people was afraid of? Because we have to sit there and see what is the makala or the koleh or the sickness or the disease of Egypt that the people was afraid of. That is right there is, for one thing, talking about the hardened heart that the Pharaoh had, the arrogance, the belligerence that thou was afraid of, to where your belligerence actually caused your downfall. You see, so now let's go, if we will, to verse 64. And the Most High shall scatter thee among all people, from one end of the earth even to the other, and there thou shalt serve other gods which neither thou, the people in Moses' time, nor thy fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, have known, even wood and stone. And among these nations thou shalt find no ease, neither shall the sole of your foot have rest. But Yah shall give thee there a trembling heart, and failing of eyes, and sorrow of mind. And thy life shall hang in doubt before thee, and thou shalt fear day and night, and shall have no assurance of thy life. In the morning thou shalt say, what God and what even. And at even thou shalt say, what God and what morning. For the fear of thine heart which thou shalt fear, and for the sight of thine eyes which thou shalt see. Now, let's understand from verse 64. The spirituality is going to be cut off because the people are going to be dealing in idolatry. One. Then in verse 65, while you are among those nations after the scattering, which they refer to as a diaspora in certain cases, while you're in there, you shall have no rest for the sole of your foot. And in verse 66, your life shall hang in doubt before you. You don't know what in the world is going to be going on. And now in the morning, which means that it's dealing with the different aspects of the society. In the morning, you should say, I wish it was evening. And in the evening, you say, oh man, I wish it was morning. For the fear of your heart, which you shall fear, because you have no rest for the sole of your foot. Now, this is all after verse 64, after the scattering. Let's go. And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships. By the way whereof I spoke unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again. And there you shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you. Now, according to the guy, not to keep harping on him per se, Rabbi Asher, he said the true Hebrew Israelites, if I'm quoting the man right, is something about going into the Hebrew. So we already went over the where part in verse 68. Okay, where Heshib ka. Heshib is a hifil verb stem when you're dealing with the Hebrew, similar to what the rabbis and them teach. Okay, now in that aspect, that is what you call the causative stem. So that means whatever or whoever in that case is going to bring you into Egypt will cause it to happen. There is a higher one that is causing that to happen. It didn't just say that you will go back. It says that you will be caused to go back. That is to say, return. One is causing you to return back into what? Egypt. And who is the one doing it according to the prophet Moses? Yah, the Most High. Now, Ms. Ryan, now let's look. Hello, can I be heard?
Loud and clear, Ak.
Yep. I'm taking in this fruit right here. Go ahead, bro.
All right, let me go. I'm trying to get my camera back up. Okay, I'm there. Now, this word right here, let's look at it. Ms. Ryan, right? The mem, Zadeh Resh Yod Mem. Now, that says Mizraim, but does Mizraim mean Egypt? Or is that something that the Israelites refer to the land of their bondage? Now, let's understand something about Hebrew, because according to that guy, he's going to sit there and say the true Hebrew Israelites are going to sit there and deal with the Hebrew. Mem, which is the first word, that the first letter you see there, in many cases is used as a prefix. It means from. It also means of. Okay? Now, when it just says like Beit Eretz Mitzrayim, from the land of Egypt. Now, let's understand that Egypt is the literal word in English from the Greek word Aegyptos. And Aegyptos is what the Greeks called that land after they was influenced by the people in what the ancient people of the Egyptians called Menopher. Menopher today is called Memphis. So this is why when you look in certain books written by Egyptologists even, when they sit there and say, okay, the word Egypt is borrowed from the Egyptian word for Memphis, you will see that when you're studying about that Kemet stuff, you see. And so therefore we have to understand that the Aegyptos, later on Egypt, is not what the ancient Israelites would have thought. So let's understand the mind of the Hebrew Israelites, or the Hebrews, that is the Israelites, because there's more Hebrews than Israelites. But this is talking about the children of Israel, right? Okay, now let's move on. It says emphatically, Mizraim, Zar in Hebrew means trouble. You see that same word when you go to the book of Psalms 118, verse 5. Distress has come upon me, but I call upon the name of Yah. He answered me with a great enlargement. Well, when it says distress or trouble, the Hebrew word that's used there is the word zar, the zadeh and aresh. Now, when you go into Hebrew in Leviticus 18, where it says a man is not supposed to marry a woman and her sister to be a rival to her, that's the Hebrew word zarar, still under that same root word, rival, distress, trouble. It's a bad thing, okay? Now, when you're dealing with Hebrew, okay, now, the Hebrew word ma'zor literally means distress. You understand? And that same word is used in Deuteronomy 28, verse 55, and in Deuteronomy 28, verse 53. It's the same word that's used when they were sitting there and dealing with the siege, and so forth and so on. Ma'zor, as well as the word ma'zok. So we have to know and understand the premise of that particular video by that guy, Rabbi Asher, saying that Deuteronomy 28 is speaking in reference with, okay, you have the Romans and what many people like to say, okay, that's dealing with the Romans and so forth and so on from verse 49 all the way to verse 68. You have a very, very big problem. Because let's go over some history. Rome became a power in the world, okay, in 146 when Perseus of the Greeks was defeated by the Romans. Prior to that, Rome was already doing their things, such as conquering Tunisia in what you call the 3rd century BCE. Okay, that's the situation in what they call the Punic Wars, because after Hannibal, unfortunately, lost to the Romans. Okay, so they already had Carthage. So Carthage was later then called Africa. This is why some people say that Africa was named after Scipio Africanus, a whole nother subject. But that became a Roman province. Let's remember that, because according to the same person in the video, the Israelites were sent to different Roman provinces. That's where your problem comes into play at. Because how then did the Israelites get into different Roman provinces? And then you're saying Deuteronomy 28, verse 68 is the quote for it, but you're saying the Mizraim, Egypt, is only that particular land in Northeast Africa. You can't sit there and admit that Rome sent Israelites to different parts of the world, throughout Southern Europe, throughout Northern Africa, and then sit there and say, but this part right here that speaks about it is only talking about the ones that sent to Egypt. That means that Egypt, Mizraim, that is, probably perhaps had a different connotation in the mind of the Israelites. So now let's understand when you're saying Mizraim, Ayim in Hebrew means a double of whatever it is. For instance, when you say the Hebrew word well, Chayim means life. That's a whole nother subject. Pardon me. When you say the Hebrew word for socks, Gerabayim, the Ayim identifies it's a dual, it's a double. Az Naim, ears, because you got 2 ears. Einayim, eyes, because you have 2 eyes. You understand? Sifatayim, lips, because you got 2 lips. Nikirayim, which means nostrils, because you got 2 nostrils. Whereas Sharirim simply means muscles, because you got more than 2 muscles. So the Hebrew itself identifies when it's being pluralized, when it's something that's dual plural or more than just a dual plural. So let that be understood. So now when you're dealing with Mizraim, that is to say that the Mazor, which is the distress, is going to be doubled. And you're going into that ba'aniyot in ships. Ba in or with aniyot from the Hebrew root word aniyah, which means ships. Now, or ship. Now, let's understand something according to the video there. According to him and others, not to, try to make him a star per se, no offense to him as a man, but some who would sit there and say, well, there was other people in the world that was taken into captivity by ships. You understand? And very true, because you had it to where there was Turkish women during the era with that guy Suleiman that was taken into bondage by ships. But you know what that Deuteronomy 28 says? Let's go there too, because remember, there's a conjecture, right, where it says and. Right? So now, let's go on and see something in verse 45. It says, moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee, and shall pursue thee, and overtake thee, till thou be destroyed, because thou didst not hearken unto the voice of the Most High, your King, to keep his commandments and his statutes which he commanded thee. So it was a contract, a berit, a covenant that was broken when Israel transgressed the laws of the Most High. Go to Daniel chapter 9, verse 11. It says, all the curses that's written in the law of Moses have been poured upon us. Now, when you go into the book of Nehemiah, it also gets into that similar subject. When you go into the book of Ezra, it gets into that similar subject. According even to those who deal with the Talmud, they are sitting up there and teaching that, well, the nations are going to come and sit there and destroy Jerusalem, so we're going to sit there and write this thing out because we're about to go into captivity. Even when you study about the thing, what they call the temple with the Sanhedrin, sit there and speak about how the curses is not finished pouring upon Israel for their transgressions. Now, let's go, if you will, even into what they refer to, even if you care to go to, and what they call the New Testament. When you have it in Luke 21, it says, when the enemy comes, flee. So therefore, that's telling you Jerusalem is going to fall to the nations. So now, are we to sit there and say that Jerusalem is only the literal Jerusalem itself? Are we to say that Judah is the only literal Judah itself? When we speak about Israel, or better yet, when we go in the book of Hosea, and it says Ephraim, getting back to that double, because what did Joseph say when he named his son? The Most High made him doubly fruitful in the land of his oppression. Ephraim, the ayin represent the double dual plural. Okay, now, when we read in Hosea, when it says Ephraim is an upside down cake or a cake not turned, is that talking about only the tribe of Ephraim, or is that talking about the capital, which represented in Samaria, which was represented in aspect of the nation of Israel as a kingdom? This is why, and all thy getting, get understanding. So now, let's go into the subject that some people present, and then go back and forth, if we will. Because they like to go into certain subjects. Let's go to Isaiah chapter 30, if we will. We're going to go in Isaiah chapter 30, verse 1, okay, and see what it says right here. And here is what we read. It says, woe, which means, trouble. Woe to the rebellious children, saith the Most High, that take counsel, but not of me, and that cover with a covering, but not of my spirit, that they may add sin to sin. Sin, according to what? Is a transgression of the law, right? Okay. That walk down into Egypt, that walk to go down into Egypt. But hold on, the book of the Torah tells us that it's 11 days journey between where Canaan was and where Egypt is. So it talks about them walking down into Egypt. When we go to Genesis chapter 12, it says that Abraham went down into the land of Egypt. When you read in the book of Jeremiah chapter 35 and chapter 36, one of those chapters, it speaks about Uriah the prophet, and how when Jehoiakim, the king of Judah, wanted to have that prophet assassinated, he ran down into Egypt, and that the men of King Jehoiakim went down after him into Egypt and had him brought back to Jerusalem and slain before the King Jehoiakim. That's right, in Jeremiah chapter 35. So we see the Hebrews going back and forth, unfortunately, in that case of murder. But my point, brothers and sisters, is the fact that you see the Israelites going right back and forth into the land of Egypt as if it was no thing. When you look at the complaints, even of the murmuring Israelites in the book of Numbers, it says, we don't have our fish, we don't have the garlic, we don't have the things that we used to eat. And Moses said at the end of Deuteronomy, it says, your feet did not swell. Never was there a complaint about the Israelites saying, oh, wow, we're just in this big land with nowhere to go. We're just don't know what in the world going on. You know why they wouldn't complain about that? Because it was common in the end into the land back and take it for those who care, oh, they're always dealing with the Bible. Let's go outside of the Bible and sit there and talk about that. Merneptah Stella, he mentions Canaan, Ashkelon, Israel, which is Israel, and other nations being subdued by him. Canaan is mentioned in the Egyptian record of Merneptah of Dynasty 19. Yeah, because they marched back and forth. Okay, let's go into the king of Egypt, which name in this case was Necho II, or also known as Necho Wehembre. He's the guy who assassinated Josiah when you go to the book of 2 Kings 23. Now, it said that he was marching on his chariots and going up through the land. And if you know history, what was going on in the 7th century BCE, in that case, with that particular march is this. Assyria was falling down. Babylon was coming up. So what the Egyptians were attempting to do historically and politically is to go and help out the Assyrians against the Babylonians so that way they can sit there and formulate some kind of nucleus. You understand? But that didn't happen because the Egyptians wound up falling because Babylon was taking over that whole thing. Okay, now, if we go into, oh, it says Egypt. Let's look at Babylon. Does Babylon mean to the Hebrews in the Bible what Babylon meant to the Babylonians? Because, see, in the Babylonian language, Babel means gate of the god. See, in Hebrew, Babel means confusion or one that is confound. So the Hebrews have a different mindset towards certain things, name it certain things. Now, let's look at, for those who care to, the names that Egypt had for themselves, if you will. You had it to where
Could I make a quick comment, bro? Could I make a quick comment, bro? You brought up an excellent point with this linguistic game people try to play with Hebrew language, with Canaanite, Phoenician, and Egyptian. What they do is this. Because we're all living in the same area, we're going to have certain words that sound the same, but yet have completely different meaning. So what people will do is they'll take a word and say, hey, this word, you got it from that, but yet the definitions are completely different. Like, for instance, gift, like kiss in English, means poison in German. So we're both saying the word, gift. Like gift in English means something totally different than what it means in German. You see what I'm saying?
And if I could add just the lamb back, because like Moreh say, we don't piggyback, so we lamb back. So the lamb back off what y'all saying. Yeah, it's just like when they try the silly stuff and they say, well, like when I say the Elohim of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, they say, well, don't you know El was a Canaanite deity? And I try to tell them, I try to tell them, like, you know, if you just know the history of the language, the Canaanites and Phoenicians, you know, when they would speak, they would call El, you know, that would be a deity for Saturn. But with the Hebrews, El, Elohim, or Elohim just meant mighty one or power.
You know how you crush that though?
It's silly. It's very silly. And I like to give a shout out to my king. I like to give a shout out to my King Jesus Christ too. I can't leave him out.
No, you know how you crush that, Mikha'El? You crush about this. Did El, the Canaanite god, make a pact with Abraham? If he didn't, that's not the same deity. It's as simple as that. Did El make a pact with Abraham? Okay. Did El create the world 6 days, told everybody to rest on the Sabbath? Did that deity do those things? If that deity did not do those things, then this is something else. Like, they be playing the name game, man. It's crazy. All right, go ahead, bro. I just want to interject on that.
No problem. Thank you for that, because it gave me time to also look something else real quick. I want to go into the book of Joel, right? Now, before we go to, it's in Joel chapter 1, verse 1. but I want to sit there and make a quick point into what I was speaking about. And that is the fact that if you look at the name that Egypt called themselves, for instance, you had because they always went to say, Miss Ryan on the Egyptian records. Okay, dude, no problem. But you know what you might find? Simatawi. That was called that like during the era of Menes, the first dynasty, the unity of the two lands. Simatawi, that was the name for it. You had certain cities that was named Yeb, which the Greeks called Elephantine. You had the city called Memphis, that the Greeks called it Memphis, but the Egyptians called it the land of Menopher, and the Hebrews referred to that as the land of Noph, N-O-P-H in the Bible. Then you had the land that they called Heliopolis, but the ancient Egyptians called that the land of Iunu, I-U-N-U, and the Israelites called that same city the land of On. You see, so different people are even going to call certain things by different names. What the Egyptians called Waset, the ancient Greeks called Thebes, and what the Hebrews called it was the land of No, N-O, in the book of Nahum, chapter 3. So when it says that no shall come to a desolation, so you saw what Thebes was, and then you see what Thebes is now. And that is credited on the human level to what happened when Ashur-bani-pal went into war with the Egyptians, who was the son of Esarhaddon. Esarhaddon being the son of the god Sennacherib. Sennacherib being the son of the god Sargon, who was the son of Shalmaneser V, who was the son of Tiglath-Pileser III. And that's when we get into Joel 1 verse 1. The word of the Most High came to Joel, the son of Pethuel. Hear this, ye old men, and give ear, all ye inhabitants of the land. Hath this been in your days, or even in the days of your fathers? Tell your children of it, and let your children tell their children, and their children another generation. That which the palmer worm hath left, hath the locust eaten, two already mentioned. And that which the locust hath left, hath the cankerworm eaten. And that which the cankerworm hath left, hath the caterpillar eaten. You know what that's talking about? Those kings I just mentioned. The Assyrians that came in. You understand? Tiglath-Pileser. Then after him you had Shalmaneser. Then after him you had the guy named Sargon. Then after him you had Sennacherib. So you had it to where the Israelites was taken into captivity. And how does this all fit into this? Because Deuteronomy 28, going back into it now. Deuteronomy 28 verse 21. And this is how you add line upon line, as point upon point. All right, Deuteronomy 28:21 says this: the Lord shall make the pestilence cleave unto thee until he hath consumed thee from off the land, whether thou goest to possess it. Okay, now the pestilence that cleaved, part of those pestilence was the Assyrians. And due to that, especially after the situation that happened with Shalmaneser, and then later on with Sargon, and the situation with Tiglath-Pileser first, the borders of the land of Israel was only from Issachar to the borders of northern Judah. After Tiglath-Pileser in 1 Chronicles chapter 5 took Gad, Reuben, and Manasseh, and then he took Asher, Dan. Then after that he took over Issachar and Zebulun, and so forth and so on. So now when you go to 2 Kings 17, and it says that the king of Assyria went up throughout the land and besieged Samaria. Hold on, are you telling me that Samaria was besieged, and this is part of the same people Moses was talking about in Deuteronomy 28? Because remember, it says, all these curses shall come upon thee and shall overtake thee. So we have to look to see not the Turkish woman with the issue with Suleiman that happened in the 16th century and so forth and so on, being taken from Turkey, or being taken from Russia to Turkey, Turkey back to Russia for his harem of women. No, because they were not there when Moses gave Deuteronomy 28. Anybody in a boat in captivity don't make you an Israelite. You have to sit there and be able to trace how all of those particular curses happened to your people in your history. And the European Jews, no offense intended, cannot do that. They was in Germany already. They decided to go from there after the Khazars was defeated by Genghis Khan, and he pushed them further into Western Europe. And so that's the situation with that. So you wasn't taken by ships. And many of the people who sit there and talk about Deuteronomy 28, getting back to verse 68, they do not mention the fact that none of these other nations speak about ships. And one person who tried to do it stumbled, if you don't know history, by saying, well, you know, okay, it doesn't say that Titus himself took them in ships, but Hadrian did use ships for some people that he used as captives. Let's get into some history, because Titus died in 81 AD, and Hadrian came into power in 117 AD. So now, if you're saying this is talking about Titus in 70 AD, then you going off trying to talk about something in reference with 117 AD. Titus is dead. Domitian done been assassinated, who was his brother, in 96 AD. So now, if we're going to get into some history and chronology, your case looks sloppy because you're not understanding the Hebrew way of the understanding of Mizraim, which basically means Ma'zor, the same word used in Deuteronomy 28, verse 53, about the distress. You're not understanding that that's going to be doubled by the way of ships. And who came into the way of ships, as stated, yoke of iron on neck, hungry, thirsty, and naked. When did that particular thing happen with a people after they were scattered and after they was indulged into serving other gods of wood and stone, where they did not have any assurance of their life? Just don't go, okay, well, this people were done by ships too, so boop, that makes them numb. No. When you really hear Israelites get into Deuteronomy 28, you can sit there and go from one part to the next part to the next part and show how each of them fits into the history of their own particular people. The women that Suleiman dealt with, of the Turkish and the Russians and so forth, they cannot go and trace this back. They cannot be the people that this is talking about. Now let's go in the King James Version, for instance, in Deuteronomy 29, verse 1. It says right here, because in the Masoretic text of the Old Testament, this is Deuteronomy 28:69. And here's what we read. It says, these are the words of the covenant which the Most High commanded Moses to make with who? The children of Israel in the land of Moab, beside the covenant which he made with them in Horeb. So there was two covenants already we see in the law itself, though the law itself is a covenant. So you had that which is in Horeb, and then you got the one right here. If you don't keep my laws, statutes, and commandments, then this and this and this and this will happen. Go to Leviticus 26, verse 33, and we can see part of what this is talking about. Let's not forget, I got the notes, blessed be the Father, that we're going to go back to Assyria and trace this all the way down. And I thank the Father for blessing the brother Alvin with the time. Now, Leviticus 26, let's start in 33. And I will scatter you among the heathen, and will draw out a sword after you, and your land shall be desolate, and your cities waste. So this tells you what? That Israel's going to be scattered among the different nations. When you go into the book of the Apocrypha in the issue with the Greeks, do you know one of the things it says in there is that when Antiochus and them came through and the Ptolemies came through and then you had all of that stuff going on, that the Israelites went wherever they could find secure, S-E-C-U-R-E, which means another word for security. So wherever they can go for security and safety, that's where the Israelites went. So it says what? And I will scatter you among the heathen. So this is how you're going to wind up seeing Israelites in Yathrib, which is in Saudi Arabia. You're going to find Israelites in Yemen. You're going to find Israelites in Oman. You're going to find Israelites in these different types of places because Israel fled when them Greeks and them Romans came up in there. Now, many people go into, as stated, Isaiah 11, as the brother Mikha'El did. And when you go into Isaiah 11, and then you go into it, for instance, in the book of Zephaniah, which is also during the time of Josiah, about maybe 50 or so years, give or take a decade or two after the death of Isaiah, the prophet Zephaniah said that the Most High will gather Israel, called the daughter of the dispersed, from beyond the rivers of Ethiopia. So now what's beyond the rivers of Ethiopia is what you call today the White and the Blue Nile. So what that is saying is that the people will have to go west, because if you go east, you're going to run into Somalia and then get into the Indian Ocean. So therefore, geographically, beyond the rivers of Ethiopia has to take you to Western Africa. So now what happens now when we get back to Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter, is this. Because you got to remember something else too. That once the Assyrian captivity happened, Israel never really had peace fully like that. Because after Assyria fell with Ashurbanipal II, okay, he fell as a kingdom. He was sent into Haran. Babylon beat them up. Okay, then you had it to where after Babylon came up, we know about the issue with Zedekiah and Nebuchadnezzar when you go to 2 Kings 25. Okay, so now Babylon done came up, still no ships used. When it says that even the Assyrian king Esarhaddon, when they did have rulership over Assyria and Babylon, took Manasseh over to the land of Babylon, he says he put him in fetters and carried him off to Babylon. There's still ships mentioned that are going into Babylon. Okay, so now let's remember that Let's remember that the fact that we had the different pharaohs prior to Israel coming into world's existence, going back and forth into the land of Canaan. Menes spoke about that. Thutmose III spoke about that. When you go even, well, by that time with Thutmose and Merneptah, Israel was already on the scene. But here's something else to point out. In the 5th dynasty of Egypt, with the Unis, UNIS, that right there goes to show you that the Asiatic, which is called the Amu, and the ancient Egyptian people is a loose term for Asiatic, which included the Canaanites. You understand? So that's where that thing became into play. So let's know and understand something else too. That in what they call the sea peoples, such as the Peleset, the Denyen, the Wedtish, and so forth and so on, inside of Egyptian records, were different nations that's coming out of the Levant that went into Egypt. But by then, the children of Israel was already out. And those who went in there on their own volition. So there's a couple of things in history that have to be noted and pointed out. So now let's go back. Babylon is now defeated by the Medes and the Persians. Because Nabonidus, he wound up either, some say he committed suicide, some say he gave himself up, what have you. Okay, Nabonidus, he is like the last king of Babylon, and that's that. Okay, so now you have Cyrus II, also called Cyrus the Great. And he comes up as a power. This is the era now with Nehemiah later and Ezra before that. All right, that kind of situation in history. So now the Old Testament ends in the standard chronological order with the era of the king Ahasuerus. And then you get a gap in the time between what they call the Old Testament and the New Testament, thanks to the Catholic Church, because they snatched the Apocrypha out and they try to put it inside of another book. You see, so that is about the 300 or so plus years between the era of the fall of the Persian Empire, because Persia fell in 331 as a kingdom, but they were still around. And then the Greeks come up. So now let's go to one of the beloved books called the Book of Josephus, okay? And let's see what happened when the Greeks came up in reference with the children of Israel. Okay, I want to sit there and read a part of this, all right? Because I didn't want to make it seem like, oh, you're just going on and we're not hearing nothing that you're pointing out other than your points. Okay, we are in Josephus, Antiquities of the Jews. Now, I'm going to Josephus because these are what the people like to use. Some people don't like Josephus, but those who discredit it, the black man in America, saying that we're the Israelites, also use Josephus. So let's use Josephus and see what it says in Josephus. Okay, now, Antiquities of the Jews, book 12. Right? Chapter 1. And here's what it says. But when Ptolemy had taken a great many captives, both from the mountainous parts of Judea, and from the places round about Jerusalem and Samaria, and to the places near Mount Gerizim, he led them all into Egypt and settled them there. And as he knew that the people of Jerusalem were most faithful and observant of the oaths and covenants, and this from the answer they made to Alexander when he sent an embassy to them after he had beaten Darius in battle. Okay, so now what's going on? This is talking about the era of what's going on with Ptolemy the First, because he had rule over Egypt after Alexander the Fourth and so forth and so on had. So this is the line of the Ptolemies, and he's taking them into the land of Egypt. And it still doesn't state how he did it. All it says is that he took them into Egypt and settled them there as captives. Now, the people who want to sit there and state, oh, they wouldn't sit there and just have them walk over to Sinai, you know, because, you know, they were smarter than that. When you're trying to have, like a lot of the brothers who are into the Kemetic science say, no, those people that were the slaves in Dynasty 13 were war captives. Okay, let's go by that standard of saying they were war captives. The people that we just read in Josephus would have been war captives, right? Now, are we to look at the record of the enslaver, the slave master, or do we sit there and look at that record and the record of the slave too? You see, it's kind of biased in a lot of cases. So now we see, we're talking about 320-something BCE. We already see Israelites being forced to go into the land of Egypt, and then sometime when you read later on in Josephus, it says that some of the people went there on their own volition. So how we have it to where Ptolemy, which was before the era of Cleopatra, but this is important in history, talking about them bringing the Israelites into Egypt, but you're going to sit there and say that 70 AD is what the book is talking about in Deuteronomy 28. if we're going to go by the word Egypt itself and say that's only talking about North Africa, then you got to also say that Deuteronomy 28:68 is talking about Ptolemy the First. But they don't talk about that. They don't mention that. When they sit there and talk about a lot of things, they just want to sit there and talk about what Titus did. Now, let's go and see with the same record that people talk about in Josephus and see what it says about their friend Titus, who was the son of Vespasian. And Vespasian, who was actually kicked out of Rome for quite a while because he used to go to sleep when the emperor Nero used to sit there and give his speeches. Okay, so we already see the kind of caliber of people we're dealing with. Now, okay, let's go, if we will, into the book of Josephus, Wars of the Jews. Okay, we're going to go toward the end of that particular part right here, right? Wars of the Jews, chapter 9. We're going to go and read the caption. What injunction Caesar, me speaking of Titus, what injunction Caesar gave when he was come within the city, the number of the captives and of those that perished in the siege, as also concerning those that escaped into the subterranean caverns, among whom were the tyrant Simon and John themselves. Oh, okay, hold on. So that right there, the caption itself, we are, for those who missed it, the book of Josephus, Wars of the Jews, chapter 9, but we're going to go into part of verse 2, right? And here is what we read. So this Fronto slew all those that had been seditious and robbers, who were also preached one to another, pardon me. But the young men he chose out of the tallest and most beautiful and reserved them for the triumph. Hold on. Okay, let's look. See, it says it right there. He reserved them for the triumph, right? Says it right here. For the triumph. Now, what triumph is that talking about? Remember, Rome is in Rome. That's in Italy. So when it says that he reserved those particular ones that they considered to be beautiful and tallest among the sons of Israel, that was taken by Titus, right? It says he reserved them for the triumph. What triumph is that talking about? Because you're telling me that it's talking about Titus taking them into Egypt. But that means he took Israelites in different places according to the same record that you're talking about. The triumph that he's talking about is that triumph that he made when he went back, when Titus himself went back into Rome and said, see, look, these are my prisoners. Now let's jump the gun and then go back. In the movie Colombo, which is the word Quilombo, if I'm mispronouncing it, my brothers from Brazil, pardon me, I'm speaking about the black people, our brothers and sisters in the, like, Zumbi dos Palmares. I'm talking about Ganga Zumba. I'm talking about Astatereni. I'm talking about Camocon. I'm talking about the people who were taken by the Portuguese and settled in Brazil by being taken as captives. And they were called, if I pronounce it wrong, I apologize. I don't speak Portuguese, okay? But to the best of my knowledge, Quilombo. Now, in that movie Quilombo, now for what it is, it's a movie. It's on YouTube too, mind you. Quilombo. And part of it, the guy said, I destroyed all the Negroes, man. I got rid of their settlement. All the Maroons are smashed, man. I got rid of all of them. They ain't going to have no Negro. We're going to keep the language clean. Is going to be able to ever step foot into Palmares again, which is the place where they were settled at during slavery and where they escaped to the mountains in Brazil, in northern Brazil. And so the guy asked him, okay, you defeated the Negroes. Yes, I did. Where are your prisoners? Don't they ask, please don't know this? Where are your prisoners? Because if you can't show me the prisoners, how do I know that you defeated the people? See, Titus didn't leave the Romans to ask that question. Titus said, I'm going to bring the most beautiful and tallest among those sons of Israel up for the triumph. And the triumph was done in Rome. So how are you going to use that same quote to say that it's only talking about 70 AD with Titus taking people into Egypt when we see Titus obviously taking them for the triumph, and the triumph was not done in Egypt. The triumph itself was done in the land of Rome. Okay, now let's go back. Okay, he reserved for the triumph. Let's move on. And as for the rest of the multitude that were above 17 years old, he put them in bonds. B-O-N-D-S. He put them into bonds and sent them to the Egyptian mines. Titus also sent a great number into the provinces as a present to them, that they might be destroyed upon their theaters by the sword and by the wild beasts. But those who were under 17 years of age was sold for slaves. Hold on. Something's wrong. Hold on. It never said ships. This is the same chapter they use, you know. Let me go over it again. It's Wars of the Jews, book 6, chapter 9, and if you read the whole chapter, it don't mention the word ships. So they're saying, well, we don't see it right there, but Titus had to have done that because he would have never sat there and just, you know, not taken them that way over the Sinai, because that would have, you know, not been good. How do you figure that? When Egyptians took prisoners across the Sinai, that a lot of brothers in the Kemetic knowledge have to sit there and say, those were war captives. Whether you call them war captives or whether you call them captives, the people who are the captives are not happy. Let them tell their story. I'd rather listen to Harriet Tubman than Massachusetts. You follow? Okay, now let's get back to the point of this right here. It says Titus also sent a great number into the provinces. So when he's taking them into the provinces, that's different places. That's why earlier when I spoke, thank the Father for the time, I mentioned Carthage with the issue with Hannibal, because by that time Carthage was already a Roman province, because after the third battle of the Punic Wars, Rome was, they defeated Carthage and rebuilt it and named it after themselves and had it for themselves. So now, the issue also, prior to Titus, let's talk about the ships, if we will. Julius Caesar, in his own way, before Rome became an empire, because Rome was a republic, and Julius Caesar's nephew named Augustus was the one who said, okay, now they're going to sit there and call it the empire. Prior to that, from the year 509 BCE until the year 27 BCE, Rome was known as what they call the republic, and then when Augustus came, they called it the Roman Empire for history purposes. Okay, now let's move on. Titus is long after Augustus. Okay, now let's get back into the issue at hand. Julius Caesar went with his army through the land of Gaul. You know what Gaul is today? France. Gaul. And when he got to the northern part of France, they used ships to try to go into Britain to take over Britain. But the British beat up Julius Caesar, so Julius Caesar had to retreat back. And Britain wasn't taken over again by the Romans until over 100 or so years after that, with the guy, don't quote me, look him up, is either Claudius or Cassius. One of those Roman emperors was the one who then sat there and tried to get up into Rome, get into England or Britain, because you got to cross what's today called the English Channel to get from France into there. So you can't go there by feet, you got to use ships. So let's understand something. If we never see a reference in the sources that they're talking about, because we read even before in history now that Julius Caesar, before Titus that is, he used ships. So it's not as if somebody was going to sit there and say, oh, well, we mean ships, but we didn't sit there and state it. No. Nah, they was being quite specific. He walked them over as the triumph and walked them over into the land of Egypt. Remember, it's only 11 days journey when you're going from the land of Canaan to the land of Egypt. Even when you watch the movie Roots, right? Though it's a Hollywood-based thing, but let's just take that for example. When Kunta, who was unfortunately later on named Toby, when he was talking to the guy Fiddler in the movie Roots, it says, that's the guy who bought Fanta when we came off the slave ship. Fiddler, how far is that, where that man live? I don't know what, 2-3 miles? Days, Fiddler. How many days? That's how the ancient nations judge timing. So when you go in the scriptures and it says it's 11 days journey from Canaan to Egypt, just like Kunta was saying, Fiddler, how many days does it take to march? So we can see even then how that culture still is kind of in connection when people traveled for days. That was nothing to sit there and, be, too hard to understand. So we have to sit back and understand certain things. Now, getting back, if we will, into Josephus, right? Let's go to part 3. Wars of the Jews, book 6, chapter 9, verse 3. Now, the number of those that were carried captive during the whole war, okay, they were war captives, ding, ding, ding. Now, the number of those that were carried captive during this whole war were collected to be 97,000. As were the number of those that perished during the whole siege, 1,100,000. The greater part of whom were indeed of the same nation, which citizens of Jerusalem, in brackets, but not belonging to the city itself. For they were come up from all the country to the feast of unleavened bread, and were on a sudden shut up by an army, which at the very first occasion so great as straitness among them that there came pestilential destruction upon them. I wanted to sit there and just read that particular part right there, because that means that some of those people that Titus had gone into the land of Egypt with as captives, all of them, according to Josephus, were not even Israelites. Because it says that some of them were of the other people that came up in reference with keeping the Passover. Remember what happened with Idumea and John Hyrcanus centuries before this event happened in 70 AD? When Judas Maccabeus, his nephew, who was the son of Simon Maccabeus, John Hyrcanus, he made the Edomites, that is to say the Edomians, convert over to the ways of being Israel. Remember Obadiah? We're going to connect it. Blessed be the Most High. Remember Obadiah speaking about how Edom and how the nations that were at peace with Edom lay a snare against him? That was those Romans that came in. See, Edom always played two-faced. I'm talking about the true Edomites. They always played two-faced. You understand? Oh, I'm with Israel. Okay, well, John Hyrcanus taught us. Oh, okay, well, I'm going to sit there side with the Romans. And this is what happened with Mark Antony and Herod. This is what happened later on when you read about Agrippa II, who was the grandson of Herod, the son of Antipater. You see what I'm saying? So Esau, the true Edomites, always hopscotch. You know what I'm saying? Between friend and foe. You see? So now, if we will, getting back into the book of Josephus, Wars of the Jews, chapter 6, book 6, chapter 9, verse 4, right? In part 430, it says, and when they found where they were, they broke up the ground and slew all that they met with. There was also found slain there above 2,000 persons, partly by their own hands and partly by one another, but chiefly destroyed by the famine. So this shows you in Josephus, when you can read the chapter on your own, not to be redundant, Wars of the Jews, book 6, chapter 9, it has 1, 2, 4 verses, okay? And it tells you right there, and none of the parts in there where it mentioned that they took him to Egypt by ships. So there's a couple of things in concluding this particular subject before we move on to another matter, getting back into the scriptures, that is. Let's understand something. Ptolemy, according to Josephus, took Israelites into Egypt. Brick wall, how you going to sit there and explain that if you're saying that Egypt is Egypt itself only and not an understanding of a concept of Egypt if you're dealing with the book of Josephus? And that was centuries before Titus. Then when you go into the record speaking about Titus, it emphatically says in there what, brothers and sisters? It says that he took them to the Roman provinces as the triumph. So now some of those same people, that's 70 AD. Now read about what happened with the proselytes in 139 AD when the emperor at that time wanted to sit there and get rid of the people. The emperor that came up after Hadrian, because Hadrian died in 138 AD. All right, now let's understand something. I have a book here that I want to sit there and get into. It's called Your Friend Right Here, Hadrian. Very, very important. I go here because a lot of times people sit there and mention him once it comes down to this particular subject, right? Now, in this particular book called Hadrian, the author is Anthony Everett, all right? I want to go into page 296, and this is very, very, very important concerning this kind of matter, so we can gain some understanding, right? It says this: a catastrophe now befell Hadrian, for which he had only himself to blame. The Jews, the Israelites, were infuriated by the ban on circumcision and deeply offended by the rebuilding of Jerusalem as Aelia Capitolina, a Jewless and Hellenic city. It took to them very much as if the Romans intended to ethnically cleanse Judea. Also, okay, we there? Can I be heard? Hello?
Yeah, we hear you loud and clear.
Also, the diversion by Titus of the half-shekel tax levied on all Jews for the upkeep of the temple on the mount, to the upkeep of the temple of Jupiter best and greatest on the capital in Rome, still ranked half a century on. All right, so basically what the author right here is saying is that Hadrian, who came to the power, and we're speaking now in 117, and he fell from power, or died, that is, in 138 AD. Now, 70 AD is before 117. Where were these Israelites that Hadrian had the problem with? They was in the provinces of Rome. One of them in particular was an actually case in the land of Egypt. Another case in the land of Libya. See, when you speak about the Catabasmos and everything, like when you go into the era of the guy Philo, when Rudolph Windsor in Babylon to Timbuktu mentions it, this man may the Most High bless him. One of my main Hebrew teachers, Kohen Mikha'El, out of a camp I came out of or came through called Hashaba Yisrael, which is now in the southern states as we speak now. He wrote a book entitled Israelites and Jews, The Significant Difference. Now, in that book, the author, one of my teachers, Kohen Mikha'El, made a couple of points. Gebal Nasir stated, you came black, or you left black, and you're trying to come back white. We can't accept you. Y'all people are basically Hebrews, that y'all not the people of the book. Okay, so let that be noted and understood. That's one case. The Arabs, the Ishmaelites, if you will, they didn't go, unfortunately, like the way Israel did, into amnesia and not know their ways. See, when you read about the people of Ishmael, Kedar, and so forth, when you go to Jeremiah 2, look over to the tents of Kedar and see if they do like y'all Hebrews do, y'all Israelites do. Does a nation change its gods or to no gods? But Israel has left the Most High. And that's what caused the Romans to be able to come up in there. The Greeks before that. Before the Greeks, the Persians. And before the Persians, the Babylonians. Before the Babylonians, the Assyrians. Before the Assyrians, the Moabites, the Edomites. Because remember, Solomon had what you call drama, a.k.a. beef. That is to say, with the people of Esau. Okay, so this right here just goes to show you how the breakdown happened. And it happened when you go into Deuteronomy 28 because Israel did not keep the laws, the statutes, and the commandments of the Most High God. Okay, so now we're not here to try to sit there and bash Rabbi Mazey, because at the end of the day, when you're saying you're an Israelite, what you're saying is, I am a descendant of the people who told the Most High, go somewhere else with your laws. I'm free. I'm going to do me. I'm my own gods. And if you don't think Israel was bold like that, read Jeremiah 44. Whatever you said in the name of Yod Hey Wah Hey, we ain't going to do that. We're going to keep offering to the Queen Mother of Heaven. All right, Jeremiah? And Jeremiah, let me tell you something else too, because I'm talking about Israel, speaking about Israel. See, Jeremiah, I want to tell you something else. When you go in Jeremiah 44, this is what the women said, not to sound sexist. Our husbands knew what we were doing when we offered to the Queen Mother of Heaven. In other words, if my man, speaking as a woman, I'm not a woman, but speaking in reference with a woman, if my husband ain't telling me, who are you? Jeremiah, you don't even have a wife. I'm going to keep doing what I do because me and my man, we good. That's how the woman was coming at Jeremiah in Jeremiah 44. So what did the Most High through Jeremiah say? The famine that was in Jerusalem shall follow you over here. The destruction that was in Jerusalem shall follow you over here. What does Deuteronomy 28 say in verse 45? All these curses shall come upon thee and shall pursue and overtake thee. Deuteronomy 28 verse 14 tells you why. Because you turned aside to other gods. That's why. That's why the Assyrians came up in there. Read Isaiah the 10th chapter. Oh, the Assyrians, they are impelling the sons of Judah. I sent the Assyrians, speaking in reference with the father, I sent the Assyrians against an ungodly nation. That's why he came. That's why Tiglath-Pileser came up in here. That's why Sennacherib sat there and said, okay, these are the men of Lachish, impale them and have them strung up on my walls. This is the same pictures that Israelites used to show how the tribe of Judah looked. You understand what I'm saying? And I want to sit there, if I can, with the time to sit there and let something be noted, if we will, brothers and sisters. See, it's right, and here we go. See, it's part of it right here, look. See, this is Syrian army. That's that right there, that's Israel. That's the Assyrians. See, that's Israel being impaled. See, it's right there. Let's go on, if we will, so we can see what's going on. Here's Yehu bowing down to Shalmaneser III, the Syrian king. This is the Assyrians. This is what Isaiah 10 is talking about. See how they sat there and impelled them? Same premise right here, what they did to the tribe of Judah. Okay, so that way we can gain an understanding of what's going on, and there should not, hopefully at this point, be any misunderstanding. Now, we spoke earlier, right, about the triumph with Titus. Let's look and see what we're talking about, brothers and sisters. This here is what they call the Arch of Titus, the menorah. And all of the people, the Romans. And where did they carry the stuff off to? Where do you think that stuff is today? Okay? I have an idea, but let's move on. So now if you sit there and look at something like that, this right there is called the Arch of Titus. So we see from the Assyrian era, he's going all the way down into what happened later on with the Israelites. You understand? So that way there should be hardly any misunderstanding. Let's see. Okay, right here. This here is a copy from the book by the elder, may he rest in peace, Ben Ami. Right here in this book, it's entitled God, the Black Man, and Truth. This is a map that I've drawn up from that. See about how the diaspora of Israel happened into the parts of Africa? See? Israel going western, Zephaniah 3, verse 10 to verse 14. After Syria, the northern tribes came into here. The southern tribes, after the Greek and Roman dispersion. So when you look at that, and then you take what the author Root of Windsor wrote in Babylon the Timbuktu, when he said that Eldad the Danite, you can look him up, E-L-D-A-D, Eldad the Danite, when he said that, yeah, there were tribes of Israel that came over here, Asher, Simeon, Gad, Naphtali, Dan, Ephraim, Manasseh, and Zebulun, and eventually we set up a kingdom. Why is it when you study college courses, they only talk about West Africa once it comes down, brothers and sisters, to the kingdoms that came up, Kenem Borno, Za, Zigzag, Nufa, Ashanti, Ghana. I'm not saying that there were no people in the world, or that is to say in this particular part in Western Africa before Israel got there. But when Israel scattered there is when those kingdoms came up. And when the transatlantic slave trade happened is when those kingdoms came down. Now, how did that come about? Okay, now, I would like to sit there and go, and I'd like to sit there and call this, if you will, a punchline, so to speak. Not that we're making jokes. Let's go to Ezekiel 20. I spoke to a good friend of mine, a brother of mine, and I said, I want to go into Ezekiel, and I didn't get fully into the details, but let's go to Ezekiel 20, verse 36. Let's see something that's very, very important concerning this kind of matter right here. All right? And let's see what it says there. Ezekiel chapter 20, we are in verse 36. And let's see what we read. I want to get right to that particular part. Okay, and we see this. Like as I pleaded with your fathers in the wilderness of the land of Egypt, so will I plead with you, saith the Most High. What is this wilderness of the land of Egypt? What is this Mizraim that the ancient Hebrews kept on talking about? And where did the pleading that happened from the Most High to Israel? Israel, keep my laws. Israel, keep my laws. When the man was gathering sticks on the Shabbat, what did the Most High say to Moses? How long will you refuse to keep my laws, my statutes, and my commandments? When you see about what happened with the situation with the golden calf, the Most High said, I have beheld this people. Wahine, am kushe oref hu. One more time. Am kushe oref hu. Behold, it is a stiff-necked people. Now move out of my way, pardon me, if you may say, I'm going to sit there and destroy them and make of you a greater nation. Yah, do not do this. Please, do not sit there and destroy the children of Israel. Why? Because like the Most High said, he doesn't give his glory to another, nor his praise to graven images, and his word doesn't come back void. What did Moshe tell the Most High? If you destroy them like that, the Egyptians will say that you couldn't sit there and bring them over into the land of Canaan like everyone was talking about. You're right. You're right. My name, not speaking about Yeshiah, speaking in reference with the Most High. Yod He Wah-He, he who was, he who is, he who will be. He can't let his name go out like that. He will not let his name go out like that. So therefore, I'm not going to destroy them. But what does it say in the book of Numbers? And you shall know my displeasure. I'm gonna get at you. I'm gonna let you wander in here for 40 years. And even as Cecil B. DeMille's film, The 10 Commandments, talk about, he let them wander in the wilderness for 40 years to see whether they would keep his laws or not. You see, so when it says, I will plead with your fathers, as I pleaded with your fathers in the wilderness of the land of Egypt, what land is that talking about? Because remember, the Suez Canal came in the 19th century AD. Ezekiel lived, speaking, in the 6th century BCE. So looking at it under that context, there was no Suez Canal then. So with that coming into play, the wilderness of the land of Egypt is today what you call the Sinai Peninsula. So let's understand something about the Israelite understanding of Mount Zorayim. It was a place of Mount Zor, which means distress doubled. The wilderness of Sinai, where the Israelites was a way that was uncomfortable to them. But at the end, the Most High was showing them through Moshe that man don't live by bread alone, but by everything that proceeds out of the mouth of the Most High. So all of the drama, all of the problems, all of the bad situations that the Israelites dealt with in the wilderness of the land of Egypt, that's talking about the wilderness of Sinai. But yet when you look at it, one is called Sinai, the other one is called Egypt. So therefore, if you're going by even modern terminologies or modern maps, you can't use that and still go into the scriptures and try to understand it under that same context, because Yisraels was still saying what? They are in, as it says, Ezekiel chapter 20, verse 36. It says what? Like as I pleaded with your fathers in the wilderness of the land of Egypt. So this right here goes to show you when he goes to Exodus 20, I am Yah, thy power, which what? Brought you out of the land of Egypt. Ding, 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 out of the house of bondage. See, you left out of the house of bondage. Now let's go to 1 Kings chapter 8:51. So we're going to see what the Israelites describe that kind of thing to be. 1 Kings.
Yeah, bro.
I'm here.
He bailed out. Damn, he was just getting in some good stuff. Moreh, you there?
It might have kicked him out. He should be right back.
He been putting in some, man. This some work right here, man.
Definitely putting in that work. So I done sat back, bust down me a bag of popcorn.
Right. Man, I was telling you that Jehu picture though, man. Man, why they had to do the homie like that, man? Like he bowing down, but now here's the thing. Let me tell you, all of the extra biblical sources of Israelites are not very complimentary. Every single outside source of an Israelite is us getting defeated. You got Jehu bowing down to Shalmaster. You got us held captive. On the Meneptah still it says we've been laid waste. You know, every single non-biblical thing we getting destroyed. Even on the Tel Dan stiller, Hazael said King Hazael said he defeated the king from the house of David. It's like not very complimentary, man.
And that's how you know we wouldn't make that up. Like, who would
Right.
write into history in such a bad way? Because the Bible don't speak no better.
Right.
That's the killer part. I mean, the Bible give us our little glory time we had, and they give us a much better promise. But when you look at the historical mess ups in the Bible, it is not flattering whatsoever to be an Israelite.
Man,
So
did you
why
see
would we?
Gabar had this little chart of all the kings that were good or bad in Israel. Like 80% of them were bad. It was like 80. I looked at that, I was like, dang. It was like 80% of the kings of Israel did evil in the sight of Yah.
Dang, I don't know.
No wonder we kept getting messed up.
I don't know if Yeshiah know how to get back in, bro, because he new to this. This is
Try sending him the link again.
Okay.
Yeah, cause it's like ain't no way we gonna make that up. Cause they try to say that Tel Dan still is a forgery. I'm like, did y'all actually read what's on the stiller? It talks about us getting defeated by Hazael. Right. It's like it's not a complimentary thing. Like if you're gonna make an embellishment, you're not gonna make a negative embellishment.
Exactly.
Jehu bowing down, that ain't no glorious picture. That's not a real glorious picture to be like, hey, us being held in captives, we got yokes on our neck. you know, like that's not glamorous, man.
Not whatsoever. That's why it makes absolutely no sense.
Hmm.
I just sent it back to him, so we hope he can get back in. 'Cause I'm about to have to get off in a minute. But yeah, this been, man, he putting in some work on this one, bro.
Yeah, this some good info right here. But a lot of this stuff undeniable what he bringing. Like, you know, somebody gonna try to come with a rebuttal, but I'm like, what you gonna come with though?
They're gonna switch the subject.
Yeah,
They're gonna switch the subject and say, give him a body.
I hate. Oh my god, dude, I'm so tired of. Dude, do you understand? If the criteria to prove someone's existence was having a body, almost 90% of historical figures would not exist.
Exactly.
We don't have William Wallace's body. We don't have Alexander the Great's body. We don't have King Cyrus' body. We don't have Xerxes' body. We don't have the first. Well, actually, we do got the first emperor of China's body. I think we do, and I think. Dude, where's Hannibal bodies at? Show me the body. I don't believe in Hannibal because I don't see no body. Show me the DNA sample.
Foolishness. Pure foolishness.
I want to see the body of Hannibal. If you can't show me, matter of fact, I'll do even better. Show me the bodies of the pharaohs of the first dynasty. Show me the body. Where are the patriarchal pharaohs of the first dynasty? I
I'm
want a
about
body.
I'm about to try to call his phone, let him know if he can't get back in, then y'all could just do a part two some other time.
Yeah, I'm about to. Well, yeah, you about to call him on the phone?
Yeah, I'm calling him now.
You gotta go anyway, don't you?
In a little while, y'all.
I might as well. I'm about to close it out, and I'll just have it on, offline. So, hey, thanks everybody for watching. We're gonna do a part 2 to this. We're gonna get the brother back to break everything down. Hope y'all learned something today. Mikha'El, you got anything else to say?
Yeah, I'd just like to say, unfortunately, our brother Moreh dropped out, but he was bringing that heat. So Alvin will bring a part 2 because I know y'all really want to hear him finish in depth. He will be doing a show tomorrow on Debate Talk for You, South Showtime. I'm not sure. I think around 8 Eastern or something like that. Y'all have to check. Where he gonna actually bring a lot of the information he brought, but he's gonna go further in depth dealing with Deuteronomy 28. So I advise y'all to check that out. Like I said, after the Passover feast and the Feast of Unleavened Bread, I will be starting the Walls of Jericho Biblical and Historical Studies show back up every Tuesday at 7 Central Time, 8 Eastern. You can find me at the Walls of Jericho have fallen. It's Brother Mikha'El ben Yisrael. Yeah, I will be keeping the feast in Chicago with my Israelites of God, my LG family. And then I'll be back and I'll be ready to start the show up. I also like to say, basically, give a shout out to the Most High God, the Elohim of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel for bringing these oracles and his knowledge upon us. And I thank my brother Alvin for giving us a platform to bring the truth. And with that, I say, Hebrew War Machine, I see y'all. Peace.
Peace.